Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Lily if you are new here, and this is Lily's book vlog channel. If you clicked here, usually it means that you like to read or you're into learning about reading. So this time it is October's wrap up. I didn't even count how many books I read. I just know that I read a good chunk. So let me see, 1, 2, 6, 7, 8. 8 books. I read 8 books in October. I was gonna say November, but we're in November. And I had a set TBR for October, and I'm actually somewhat proud of myself because out of my set TBR, I read 6 out of the 8 on there. I read 8 books in total, but only 6 of them were actually on my TBR. There was a couple that I read that weren't on my TBR, and that means a couple that I didn't read that were on my TBR that I could have but didn't. But let's get into it. I have 0 of these books physically on hand because a good chunk of them were library books that got returned. I think a couple of them, 3 of them I think were ebooks, and the 2 physical books I owned are currently packed up because we were in a situation where we thought we might have to move and quickly pack up. So there was that. So I don't have any of the books physically on hand. I have my little piece of paper telling me what books I read because my memory is not the greatest. So we're going to start off with the first one, which was Live Happy. This was the nonfiction book that I had. Like I said, I'm trying to read at least kind of now near the end of the year. I'm trying to get at least usually 1 nonfiction book per month to do it. So Live Happy was mine. I had started it technically the end of September, but stuff happened to where I didn't finish it until October. And I don't rate my nonfiction books because, again, what I feel for this one is that like it might resonate differently every time. Like maybe it helps more now than it does in the past or kind of something like that. But I just feel like nonfiction books, it's harder because I don't want to rate them because, again, it's in a moment, and sometimes too certain things resonate more because you're dealing with that at the time versus kind of having it where nothing is relevant to you because you're not dealing with something. So there's some stuff in this book that at the time, like, I'm reading it and I like it, but then of course now it's like I'm not thinking about it. Like I can remember maybe a couple of stories, but not enough to like give you details about it. I can remember brief parts and stuff. So I don't do readings for those, but I did read Live Happy, which was about 10 practices of finding joy or happiness, I think it was. So I did do that one. My next one was One Dark Window, which again was also kind of like Live Happy, where I had technically started it in September, but a lot of stuff happened at the end of September, so I wasn't able to finish it until October, but I still put it on my TBR. Both of them went on my TBR because I still was going to read them, and I finished them. So One Dark Window, though, that one was really interesting. So brief synopsis of what it was is that basically they're in a time where their land is cursed by, I think it was like some sort of spirit. I want to say like a tree spirit or just the spirit or something, but basically their land got cursed because people used to go and talk to, I think it was the forest spirit or tree spirit. It's one of those. But they used to go talk and do wishes to this tree spirit for things. And then there's a king who went and basically got like granted this magic. And he would sacrifice things to get this magic. And these magics came in the form of cards and stuff that other people, all they had to do is like tap it 3 times and they're able to use it. And of course, every time you use a card, you're sacrificing something, and this king sacrificed himself basically to get these cards. But when it got down to the last card, the king basically had to sacrifice himself, I think it was. I might be slightly wrong, but basically he wanted these 12 cards. They're called Providence cards. And he got them, and he was sacrificing things to this spirit to get them. And then the spirit basically was annoyed because in the end, people stopped coming to it to get wishes and stopped like doing it. So it cursed the land of the king that the king had, and basically has it where like there's like this dark mist and fog, and if you go in there without like a lucky charm or protection, you can become infected. And if you get infected, the way they know you're infected is that like your blood runs black, and you get like magic powers without the cards. But they also, again, the whole thing is that there's like a give and take. So the spirit gives you magic, but it also over time will take something from you. And so the main story is about this girl named Elizabeth. It's not Elizabeth, it's Elizabeth. Or Elspeth. I might be saying that wrong. I feel like I said her name wrong the entire time for this. But basically, her dad was part of these guards who would go find these infected and basically lock them up, kill them. Basically, her dad was the high up. She got infected. He sent her away to her aunt's and uncle's place because he didn't want her, because he was the guard, but he didn't want to kill her because of her mother. He loved her even though her mother died, and he got remarried and had 2 more kids with this new wife, but he loved his first daughter. So he sent her away even though she was infected, and he could get in trouble by the king. And she gets infected, and they're avoiding this stuff, and she's trying to figure out what her magic power is. And she tells everyone that she doesn't have one. Yeah, she's infected, but she doesn't have one. Or at least her aunts and uncle and cousins kind of think that. So she has this thing where basically she touched one of the Providence cards, and now she has this voice in her head. And she doesn't know much about it. She doesn't feel like she has, again, like powers or something. She just has this annoying voice in her head, and like she goes to this ball at the king's house and runs into some people, and basically they're trying to find all 12 Providence cards to break the curse. And the king is trying to find, the new king is trying to find all these Providence cards to break the curse. But it's one of those things where there's one card that like legend has it that is like gone. No one knows where it is. Because that was like the last wish was from the king when he went to the spirit, was to get that one last card, but then like it disappeared or like went somewhere. So there's that. But basically she ends up helping a new like head guard for the thing, who's also cursed later on. You find out like there's all these people that are cursed that like you don't know, and you don't know what their curse is, and like extra stuff. So she basically gets roped into this, but then the ending, oh my god, the ending was crazy. And that's why I gave this book, honestly, a 5 stars. And there is a second book, and that's the end of the series, and I went to go try to buy it, and they didn't have it. And then I went and got a different book instead, which is talked about in my library haul book video, I think. Maybe? I don't know. I might not have. But basically I got 2 other books. I got the Fourth Wing book and When the Moon Hatched. I don't think I talked about those, but I got those ones instead. But then I did borrow the second book from One Dark Window to figure it out. But I gave that one, like I said, 5 stars. That one was crazy good. It was super interesting. I won't lie that at first, in the beginning, I was so confused by those Providence cards. And like the way it spoke and the like dialogue and stuff. Little old school kind of. But that's how I gave that one 5 stars. Next book that I did was Lost in Embers. This one was an art copy I got from M.L. Barry. Mind you, I'm looking at my little note card because, again, I know what books I read, but I also forgot some of it because, again, I'm older and forgetful, and just most people, you read a book and then you're like, oh, I remember this book. What do you remember? This. So, the Lost in Embers book was an art copy, and I have had it for I think like a month, and I had to finish it so I could get my review in and all that for the author before a set date. So I finished it I think before the 8th. So, but that one I gave 4 stars, and it's a pretty good, interesting book where this girl, she's having these dreams about her like town being blown up, and she keeps running into this one guy, and her main goal is always to try to find out what happened to her mom, where's her mom, right? And she's going on a vacation to celebrate her birthday because I think she was about to turn 25. I won't lie, I don't remember some of this stuff, and some of it I remember and I don't want to. So this next part is the part where I didn't care. The part where she went to her birthday and was celebrating in Mexico was so annoying and kind of almost like a college student like going on spring break in my mind. And that's the one thing I didn't like about this book, was a lot of that, because I was like, oh my gosh, like this and this and this and this, and it's like, ugh. So there's that. But basically what it is that the guy who she remembers in her dream, she runs into in Mexico, but then she has a friend who doesn't like the guy that she meets and wants her to stay away, which again, she never has personally met this person, and this person is not the greatest in some sense, and it's just like, it's very like one of those things where it's almost like insta love, and in one way I don't like that 100% for some of them it's okay because it's like, oh okay, but others it's like insta love and then it goes into like creepy stalker, like lack of communication, no information given. And that's kind of what this was, is that he knew stuff about her but never told her, and like I feel like a good chunk of this could have been kind of solved if he had just told her. But then again, it's like one of those things where I don't think she would 100% have believed him, because later on she goes home and learns all this other stuff from this box that she got, that she had visions of her dad leaving for her in this time. And it's just very weird and stuff. And the ending, it ends on kind of like a cliffhanger. And I do currently have the second book, because you had to finish the review for the first one to be able to sign up for the ARC review for the second one. And I've started a little bit of it, but like it's not one of those things where I'm like dying to go and read it, but it is there. So again, 4 stars for Lost in Embers. Next is Anaconda Downstairs. These ones I love. They're so funny. They're by Amy Award. I've read her last 3 books. These are the Cocky Kingman series. These are about Kingsman brothers who play hockey for the Denver team, and it's a different Mustangs, I believe is what they're called, Denver Mustangs, which I'm in Colorado, so that makes me laugh because it's just so funny and ironic. But this one specifically, this one I liked a lot. I gave it a 4.5 star. I liked it a lot. There's some stuff that again it's like but it's funny because this one's about the brother Emmett, and Emmett has this crush on this one girl, but she's best friends with his brother's soon-to-be fiance, and so in a way he's like, no, she's off limits, because not only is she the best friend to his possible future sister-in-law, but she's like an assistant, she works with it, so he doesn't want to like cause issues and stuff. And his brother, who's dating the best friend of, like, I'm feeling like I'm getting confused. The brother whose best friend that the other brother is Everett. I'm forgetting brothers' names. They're getting mixed up. But one of the brothers basically told him not to go near her. And so he's like, okay, I can't go near her. Can't have feelings, can't have thoughts, right? But obviously he does. And her, she's a big curvy girl. Amy Award likes to write about curvy girls and like all this stuff. And she talks about in her books like how she writes these, they're like fluffy romances, but they are going to talk about issues with body shaming and like body positivity and stuff. So all four Cocky Kingsman's book deals with stuff like that. So the girl, her name is Penelope or Penny. I think she goes by all of those. She basically just doesn't think she deserves love and stuff. And her best friend in the book is Kelsey Bests. I want to say that's her last name. And she's like a superstar, and she's from book 2, and she's the one where a lot of people didn't like that book because they thought it was like a knockoff of like Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, and it's like and stuff. But the difference is, again, big body positive women. And so her friend Kelsey is getting nominated for a Grammy, and she wants the Penelope girl to go, and the Penelope girl's like, I don't want to really go because I'm a big girl and I don't want paparazzi to like shame me, and then if I go alone, what if they're shaming me for that? But then I can't find a date who's like gonna be able to do that and like want to be with me. So she goes to Everett. I swear I don't remember his name, but it's one of those. But she goes to him because his family calls him the love guru. And so she asks for help, and he's trying to help her, but then like, again, he's falling for her, and she's like, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable doing this, but I feel comfortable with you. And then later on they fall in love, basically. But it's really sweet. It's just one of those things where sometimes too there's certain things that it's just like like the conflict, or like you get to the part where it's like, oh, okay, here's the big issue, or here's the happy ending, but then there's still like all this pages left, and then you have to deal with like they have a conflict and they got to solve it together. And I'm just, that part is the part that like always throws me off for some of this. So that one, like I said, I gave it a 4-star, not a 4.5. My bad. Anyways, next one was Terms and Conditions. This one wasn't on my TBR, but I have been meaning to read it. It's part of the Dreamland Billionaire series. This is book 2, has to deal with Rowan's brother Declan and Iris, who's his secretary. He has to get this will agreement set for him to win part of his grandfather's will, which is basically he has to be married, and I think it was, the part of this is the terms that I forget. Something about like having a baby, or in the process of having a baby, or something, or there's a hair and stuff. And the issue is that he's like cold and like mean and kind of like closed off. And so his secretary Iris has been trying to find someone who's just willing to marry him and then have a baby like through IVF kind of ways. And so she's trying to find people. She found someone, and then he's like, no. He scared her off. And so then, like, she just is like, they're at this party that's supposed to announce his engagement to someone. And she had a bride set up and everything, and she left. And the Declan's guy, like, is like, well, find someone else. And she's like, who am I supposed to find in the next few minutes? And so then she volunteers. And she has her whole past and stuff, and he has his issues. And they get married. And then they're dealing with, like, emotions and, like, how to deal with stuff and all that. Sorry. But they're dealing with that. And I will say my favorite thing of this book is, like, their banter back and forth. Because, like, he's supposed to be this big, scary, like, CEO guy who you don't want to mess with and, like, piss off. And she's just like, yeah, no, whatever. She's like, I will take the hit. I will say stuff back to you. She's like, I don't care. And so I like that. So this book I gave a 4.5. The only thing is just, like, some of it, too, is it's, like, it just felt really long. And, like, I get Lauren Asher, like, in the way of, like, it was, like, slow burn and build up and, like, details and all this, like, extra little information. But sometimes after a while, I'm like, can we just get to the end? Like, hurry. Quick. So, there was that. Next is Heavenbreaker. This was my sci-fi novel, and it was kind of like my first one. And it was about, I forgot her name. But basically, so there's these higher up houses, and they're in space. It's like one of those things where the earth is like not able to be lived on by humans. I was thinking of the word and I was like, no, I'm not gonna try. But basically, you can't live on Earth. So they're up in these space stations living, and there's these different districts. There's the higher ups, the middle, and the low. And of course, your higher ups, you have like dukes and houses and all this. And this girl, she's down in the low. Her mother gets assassinated and she gets away just barely. And so she's climbing her way. It doesn't tell you, but it does in a way. But like basically in the beginning, she kills this head guy, this duke. And you find out that it's her father. But she's a basically bastard child is what they called it. And so she kills him because he sent the assassin to kill her mother and her. But she survives. So she kills him. And then they're like in this tournament where they have these big machines that go out in space and fight kind of for fun. And so she doesn't care at that time. She's like, I'm ready to die. Blah, blah, blah. She goes, gets a suit, like it's trying to hide her identity to go to this thing to battle in this tournament. And most of the time she has zero training in this because again, she's from the lower districts. So she has zero training. She goes, she does this, she survives. And then this other guy kind of like adopts her and is like, I want you to fight for me in these tournaments. And she's like, why would I do that? She's like, I wanted to die. I didn't care. She's like, whatever. Right? And so he strikes a bargain that he will help her take down the house that her dad kind of was a part of if she wins. So every time she wins a round, he's like, I will basically find a way to get someone killed who helped your father assassinate your mother, and I'll give you proof that they're dead, what they did, right? So she goes through this long, grueling training process and stuff, and she's learning about this and learning about fighting and stuff, and it talks about when she goes and does the fighting and about the people and all this other stuff. And there's extra characters in there too that you learn and stuff, and basically it was really interesting, but it was also kind of difficult to understand, and so it took me a while, but it was pretty interesting, and I liked the ending once I finally grasped fully kind of almost what was going on and how it's going on and all this and stuff. So it was a really good book. That one I did for sure give a 4.5. The only reason I didn't get a 5 is just because there are, like I said, some parts where I'm still kind of confused, and like there's just some things that I'm like, I don't get fully. And there is like a kind of a cliffhanger in a way, not a full-on cliffhanger, but you know that there is a second book to explain the rest. So it's like one of those things where it's always like a little piece left to go on. So there's that. Next one is Never Been Hexed. This one was book 2. The first one I think was called Midlife Curses, I think. I don't remember. I'll pop up a picture. So this is the second book, and then over here will be the first book. The first book I read a couple months ago, and it wasn't like a great book. I think I gave this one a 3, but then I was like, you know what, I'll check out the second book because the first book ended kind of with an interesting thing that I knew was going to continue in the second one, and it did. So basically this witch, I forgot her name. I'm really great with the character names, I'm telling you, but I forgot her name. But basically in the first book she had learned that she was a witch on her 40th birthday, and she was dealing with learning about her powers. I heard noises, sorry. She was dealing with learning about her powers, and then she had it where she had her boss be murdered and found out that he was a vampire and trying to find out what happened, right? So that was the first book. The second book was more about her dad. She finds out her dad dies. And the way she finds out is he's a ghost, and he appears to her and is telling her like, hey, I didn't die naturally. Something else happened, but I can't tell you fully. He's like, that's all I can tell you. I'll see you later, right? So he is gone. She goes and finds out that like there was magic used, and she traces it all the way back home and stuff, and she has it where like her grandma has some witches that, like, they're not a coven, but they have witches that they're, like, known with. And they do this thing to test and see the magic, because each one has different magical, like, power color. And so she finds out, but she's like, that's weird. Why would she want my dad dead? Stuff like that. And it goes on this journey of basically learning about different stuff. And she gets cursed or hexed in this process and almost dies and has to, like, shave her head. And her familiar, I think in the last book, her familiar got taken, but I don't remember that part. Like, I don't, and I feel bad that I don't remember, but he got taken. And so in the beginning, along with her dad dying, she spent a lot of time trying to find out how to get her familiar, where he went, what happened, stuff like that. And then, yeah, she finds out all this stuff, and she's learning more too about what happened to her mom, because her mom was part of this secret society for witches and, like, the laws and stuff. So she's learning, like, a lot still. And in a way, it's a lot to take in with everything. But this one was more interesting for sure than the first, even though I still don't remember her name and stuff. A lot of this book I remember more. And there is, like I said, it's like a series, so there is a third one. And I do have that one on Kindle Unlimited to check out. But again, I don't know when I'll get to it. Like I said, I read this one I was like, let me just pick up, like, a paranormal fantasy that is not that hard to read with everything that I had read. Something quick, light, spooky, all that. And the last book is The Dagger and the Flame. This one is the one I own, but it's packed up. This one was my book of the month book that I had, and it was on my TBR. This one I technically finished on November 1st, but it's going to count for October because I spent so much time reading it, and there was still some stuff that happened in October to where I probably would have finished it if I had more time for it. So The Dagger and the Flame is about this girl, Seraphine. Her mother is murdered in a house fire, and she's running for her life. She goes and runs to this place. So it's called the Armand House, I believe, and it has these people called the Cloaks. The Cloaks are people who use this magic dust to go on their clothes and help them blend in the shadows so they can steal. But they're considered better, from what her mom told her, than the daggers, who drink it, their eyes turn silver, and they can kill you by just touching you. Like, boom. So she's running because she's pretty sure that the daggers are the people who killed her mom and are out to kill her. And they are. And the part that makes me slightly annoyed is later on finding out kind of why. Because there's, like, a 2-part reason why and stuff. So there's that. So she goes to the House of Cloaks to get safety and to learn to become a cloak, because both houses take in orphans to be, like, part of their thing. It's just more of, are you willing to steal and wear shade, or are you willing to kill and consume it and have it, like, take over your body? Because when you consume it, you get, like, these, like, black, like, whirls and swirls on your skin, and they kind of hurt, but it's like a reminder of the stuff they're taking. And also, just a quick thing is that her mom, Seraphina, and her mom were people who made this stuff. They would get the plant, make this stuff, and then ship it to the Cloaks. They never worked with the daggers, they worked with the Cloaks. Her mom hated the daggers, like, head honcho. And again, you learn later on why she hated him, and you also learn why they wanted her dead and killed her, and why they wanted her daughter dead. But basically, it's an enemies to lover book. There's a dagger who wants to kill the Seraphine because he's supposed to be next in line for the head of the Cloaks, or no, head of the daggers. And his one job is to kill her. But something about her is sticking out to him and making him do, like, what he wants to do with her. And so basically it doesn't happen. And there's a part where my favorite thing was, there's a part where she basically almost kills him, and it's like she got the upper hand. And I like that because, again, it was back and forth, and it was like a true enemies to lover. It wasn't like an enemies to lover where it's like hey, like, I hate you, but all of a sudden I love you. No, there was like banter back and forth where it's like, no, blah, blah, blah. And I loved that part. And then they kind of learned some secrets because there's monsters in the city that are killing anyone and everyone. And in a way, it's looking more bad on the daggers, but of course the cloaks, who also use shade, also have it. So they're trying to work together, even though they don't like each other. We're trying to work together. But then later on, basically there's another thing that the Seraphina learns about her mother, and that is that her mom is responsible for creating the monsters and stuff, because she was hoping the monsters would kill the guy who was the head of the daggers, because again, she really hates him. And in a way, I think part of it still was that he kills her for that, but not 100%. Because again, later on, you learn so many secrets, and it's like, oh my gosh, what? But it's also kind of annoying. So this book I gave 4.5 because again, there is so much going on. And I won't lie, it doesn't have like a full-on happy ever after ending. And in one way, I hate that because I love happy ever afters, or HEAs. I love those, but this one didn't have one fully, but it has it where it's opened for the next book. And it's like a lot of these books that I'm reading have next books that keep going and stuff. So, because I think, what was it? One Dark Window has one. Lost in Embers does. Anaconda Downstairs definitely does. Term and Conditions does. Heavenbreaker does. Never Been Hexed. And then this one, The Dagger and the Flame. So, 7 out of the 8 books I read this month, or last month, are part of a series. And I've seen videos where people try to finish series. Mind you, that One Dark Window does only have one other book. Terms and Condition, I did technically start the 3rd one, but then I put it down and I had to return it. So I'm close with that one. And a lot of these other ones too, they have the 2nd books, but they're not out. So it's one of those things where it's like a waiting game. But yeah, so like I said, The Dagger and the Flame, I think I said I gave it a 4.5. Again, it's just some of the parts of it, like, it's really interesting, and like, I really can't wait to see what happens, but also I'm like slightly annoyed at some of the stuff. So there is that, because basically too, it becomes enemies to lovers, and then he's trying to save and protect her, so he becomes her enemy again. And that part annoys me. I don't like enemies to lovers back to enemies. Because even though it's possible that going back to enemies means that they can also go back to being lovers, it's a lot of complicated stuff. So there is that. So like I said, I read 8 books this month. Tell me how many books you read in October. Should be clarifying October, because this is getting posted in the week or 2 after, in November. But tell me what books you read, how many you read. Have you read these books? Do you have same thoughts? Do you have stuff to say? Because again, I could talk about some of these still so much more, but I won't. So, like I said, have some other videos I'm hopefully going to post soon to do that aren't just wrap-ups and TBRs and stuff. So hopefully that will get done soon. If not, I hope you guys have a great holiday and time. And make sure that you like and subscribe if you like this. Again, tell me stuff about the books you've read. And we will see you soon.